Imagine there's a Bible, not the one you've probably grown up with or seen on church shelves, but one that whispers secrets from the dawn of Christianity itself. A Bible that's been guarded like a treasure in the highlands of Ethiopia, holding truths so explosive, so mind-bending, that powerful leaders decided to lock them away from the world. You've heard of the Standard Bible with its 66 books, right? The ones that tell the stories of creation, the prophets, Jesus, and the apostles. But what if I told you there's another version, one with 88 books, including texts that were branded as dangerous, heretical, or just too wild for the masses? These aren't fairy tales or made-up myths. They're ancient writings that dive into fallen angels mingling with humans, giant beings roaming the earth, cosmic wars in the heavens, and prophecies that could make your skin crawl with their relevance to today. Today, I'm going to take you on a journey through this hidden world of the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible. We'll uncover why these extra books were banned, what shocking revelations they hold, and how Ethiopia became the unlikely guardian of these lost scriptures. By the end, you might just see the entire Bible, and maybe even the world, in a whole new light. So settle in, because this isn't just history. It's a story of faith, power, rebellion, and divine mysteries that have been buried for centuries. Let's start at the beginning, way back before Christianity even had a name. Picture this. It's around the 10th century BC, and the ancient world is buzzing with kingdoms, trade routes, and legends. In the Bible, there's a brief mention in 1 Kings chapter 10 of a queen from a distant land called Sheba. She hears about King Solomon's wisdom in Jerusalem and decides to visit him, bringing spices, gold, and tough questions to test his knowledge. The Bible says she was blown away by his answers, and she left with gifts and a sense of awe. But that's where the Western version stops. It's like a teaser trailer, leaving you wanting more. Now, in Ethiopian tradition, this story explodes into something epic. The Queen of Sheba wasn't just some curious visitor. She was Makeda, a powerful ruler from the land that would become Ethiopia and parts of Yemen. According to the Kebra Nagast, which is like Ethiopia's national epic and a key text in their Bible, Makeda didn't just chat with Solomon. They fell in love, or at least shared a deep connection, and she returned home pregnant with his child. That child, Menelik Bai, who would grow up to be the first emperor of Ethiopia, starting a dynasty that claimed direct descent from Solomon himself. Can you imagine? A bloodline tying Africa straight to the heart of ancient Israel. But here's where it gets even wilder. When Menelik was old enough, he traveled to Jerusalem to meet his father. Solomon welcomed him, taught him the ways of kingship, and even wanted him to stay. But Menelik had a destiny back home. As he prepared to leave, the story goes that he and some Israelite nobles secretly took the Ark of the Covenant, the actual box holding the 10 Commandments, from the temple. Why? Because God willed it, according to the legend. They brought it to Ethiopia, where it's said to be guarded to this day in a chapel in Aksum. No one's allowed to see it except one monk, sworn to protect it for life. Think about that for a second. If this is true, Ethiopia isn't just another country in biblical history. It's the chosen guardian of one of the holiest artifacts ever. This tale isn't just folklore. It's woven into Ethiopia's identity, shaping their faith and their sense of divine purpose. Historians debate it, of course. Some say the Ark story might be symbolic, a way to legitimize Ethiopian rulers by linking them to Solomon. Others point to archaeological evidence in Aksum, like ancient stelae and ruins that hint at deep Jewish influences predating Christianity. There are even traces of Jewish communities in Ethiopia known as Beta Israel or Falashas, who practiced a form of Judaism that seems straight out of the Old Testament without later rabbinic additions. This connection sets the stage for why Ethiopia's Bible is so unique. Fast forward to the 1st century AD. Christianity is just sparking in the Roman world, with apostles spreading the word. In the book of Acts, chapter 8, there's this Ethiopian eunuch, a high official in the court of Queen Candace. He's reading Isaiah on his chariot when Philip the Apostle appears, explains the prophecy about Jesus, and baptizes him. The eunuch heads back to Ethiopia, carrying the seeds of the faith. Was this the start? Ethiopian tradition says yes, making their Christianity one of the oldest in the world. But it really takes root in the 4th century. Enter King Ezana of Aksum, the ancient kingdom in northern Ethiopia. Around 330 AD, two Syrian brothers, Frumentius and Aedesius, shipwreck survivors, end up in Aksum. They rise in the court, and Frumentius converts the king. Ezana declares Christianity the state religion, minting coins with crosses instead of pagan symbols. Aksum becomes a powerhouse, trading ivory, gold, and incense across the Red Sea to Rome, Persia, and India. Their navy dominates the seas, and their architecture, those massive obelisks, rival anything in Egypt. This early adoption meant Ethiopia wasn't under Roman thumb. While Constantine was calling the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD to hammer out Christian doctrine, Ethiopia was developing its own flavor, influenced by the Coptic Church in Egypt. Frumentius was ordained bishop by Athanasius in Alexandria, linking them closely. They translated the Bible into Ge'ez, an ancient Semitic language still used in liturgy today. And here's the key. Their canon included books that the West would later ditch. What are these extra 22 books? Well, the Ethiopian Old Testament has 46 books instead of 39, and the New Testament adds some like the Shepherd of Hermas and the Apostolic Constitutions. But the real gems are the ones often called apocryphal or pseudepigraphal. Enoch, Jubilees, 1-3 Maccabees, Ascension of Isaiah, Baruch, and more. These weren't afterthoughts, they were revered scriptures, passed down from Jewish and early Christian communities. Why did Ethiopia keep them? Isolation helped. Surrounded by mountains and deserts, they resisted invasions, from Muslims in the 7th century to Ottomans later. When the Roman Empire fell and Europe entered the Dark Ages, Ethiopia thrived as a Christian island in a sea of other faiths. They maintained ties to Jerusalem, sending pilgrims and even claiming protectorship over Eastern Christians. Let's zoom in on the Council of Nicaea. You've probably heard of it. 318 bishops debating the nature of Christ, condemning Arianism. But it also started standardizing the canon. Not officially, the canon wasn't fully set until later councils like Hippo in 393 or Carthage in 397, but the push was to unify, exclude texts that might cause division or heresy. Ethiopia. They weren't invited, or at least not deeply involved. Their church aligned with the Oriental Orthodox, splitting after Chalcedon in 451 over Christ's nature, monophysite versus diophysite. This schism kept them independent, preserving a broader canon. Now imagine the cultural impact. In Ethiopia, faith isn't just Sunday service. It's life. Monks in rock-hewn churches of Lalibela, carved in the 12th century by King Lalibela as a New Jerusalem. Festivals like Timkat, reenacting Jesus' baptism with processions and ark replicas. Their art, vibrant icons of saints, angels battling demons, influenced by Byzantine but uniquely African. Politically, this Bible bolstered rulers. Emperors like Haile Selassie in the 20th century claimed Solomonic descent, using the Kebra Nagast to justify divine right. Economically, the church owned vast lands, influencing agriculture and trade. But let's not romanticize. There were challenges. Internal heresies like the Stephanites in the 15th century rejecting Mary veneration, external threats like the 16th century invasion by Ahmad Gragn, a Muslim leader who burned churches and manuscripts. Yet the Bible survived, copied by hand in monasteries. Compare this to the West. The Reformation in the 1500s, Protestants like Luther dropped the Deuterocanonicals, calling them Apocrypha. Catholics kept them, but the divide deepened. Ethiopia watched from afar, their 88-book Bible intact. So why ban these books? That's where the drama ramps up. Some were too mystical, like Enoch's angel tales, scaring church fathers who wanted focus on salvation, not speculation. Others too Jewish, emphasizing laws Paul seemed to supersede. And some threatened unity, offering alternate views. Take Enoch, quoted in Jude, influential on early Christians, but Origen and Tertullian debated it. By the 4th century it was out in the West. Ethiopia? It's canonical, shaping their angelology. Jubilees rewrites Genesis with angels teaching laws. Too legalistic for a grace-focused church. Maccabees, heroic but Catholic for purgatory hints in set Maccabees. Protestants axed them. These bans weren't just theological. Power plays. Constantine wanted a unified empire, so a unified Bible. In Ethiopia, no such pressure. Their independence preserved diversity. Now, colonial era, Europeans arrive in the 15th century, Portuguese allies against Muslims. But tensions rise. Jesuits try converting to Catholicism in the 17th century, criticizing the broad canon. Emperor Fasilides expels them in 1632. Later, Italy invades in 1896, defeated at Adwa, Ethiopia's pride. But in 1935, Mussolini conquers, suppressing the church, viewing their Bible as backward. Yet Ethiopia endures, their Bible a symbol of resistance. This history isn't just past, it's legacy. Today, scholars study Gaia's manuscripts for lost texts. The Dead Sea Scrolls echo Enoch and Jubilees, validating them. Global impact. Ethiopia's story inspires Pan-Africanism, Rastafarianism reveres Selassie as divine. What does this mean for you? Maybe it's a call to explore beyond the familiar, question what was excluded and why. Now, as we move deeper into this story, let's turn our attention to the heart of what makes the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible so extraordinary. Those banned books themselves. You've heard me mention them, but now it's time to peel back the layers, book by book, revelation by revelation. Imagine holding one of these ancient manuscripts in your hands, the Ge'ez script flowing like a river of forgotten wisdom. These aren't just add-ons, they're windows into a spiritual universe that the Western world decided to board up. Why? Because they challenge, they provoke, and they expand our understanding of God, angels, humanity, and the end of everything. We'll start with the most infamous one, the Book of Enoch. And trust me, this alone could fill hours of discussion. The Book of Enoch isn't some obscure footnote. It's a sprawling epic that reads like a cosmic thriller. Written sometime between the 3rd century BC and the 1st century AD, it's attributed to Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah, who the Bible says walked with God and was taken up without dying. In Genesis, he's just a blip, but here, Enoch is our guide through heavens and hells, revealing secrets that make you question everything. The book is divided into sections, each more mind-blowing than the last. Let's start with the Book of the Watchers, the first part. Picture this. God assigns 200 angels, called the Watchers, to observe humanity. But these aren't your fluffy-winged guardians. They're powerful beings who get tempted by earthly women. Led by Semjaza and Azazel, they descend to Mount Hermon, yes, a real place in the Levant, and swear an oath to defy God. They take human wives, teach forbidden knowledge like metalworking for weapons, enchantments, astrology, and even cosmetics, which the text sees as tools of seduction and corruption. From these unions come the Nephilim, those mysterious giants mentioned briefly in Genesis 6. But Enoch doesn't hold back. These giants are massive, violent hybrids, devouring everything in sight, crops, animals, even people. The earth cries out in agony, and the good angels report this to God. What follows is divine intervention on a grand scale. Archangels Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel are dispatched. Raphael binds Azazel in a desert pit. Gabriel incites the giants to war against each other. and Michael chains Semjaza and the others under the earth until Judgment Day. Then comes the flood, not just to wipe out humanity's sin, but to cleanse the taint of these angelic rebels and their monstrous offspring. Why was this banned? Early church fathers like Tertullian and Origen referenced it positively, and it's even quoted in the New Testament book of Jude. But by the time of Augustine in the 5th century, it was deemed too speculative. The church was building a theology focused on Christ as the sole mediator, tales of angels teaching magic and breeding giants. That smelled like pagan mythology or Gnostic heresy, which emphasized secret knowledge. Plus, it raised uncomfortable questions. If angels could fall and mate with humans, what does that say about free will, sin's origins, or even the nature of evil spirits? Some scholars think the Nephilim spirits became demons, haunting the world post-flood. But in Ethiopia, Enoch is sacred. It influences their art, with paintings of bound angels and giant battles. Their liturgy echoes its themes of judgment and heavenly order. And get this, the Dead Sea Scrolls, discovered in 1947, included fragments of Enoch in Aramaic, proving it was revered by the Qumran community, possibly the Essenes, who some link to John the Baptist. This validates Ethiopia's preservation. They kept what others lost. Moving on in Enoch, there's the Book of Parables, a section packed with messianic prophecies. Enoch visions a Son of Man, a divine figure seated at God's right hand, judging the world. Sound familiar? Jesus calls himself the Son of Man in the Gospels, and Revelation mirrors this judgment scene. Here, the Son of Man confronts kings and the mighty, exposing their sins, while the righteous are exalted. The fallen angels beg for mercy but get none. They're thrown into a fiery abyss. This apocalyptic vibe influenced early Christians' end times thinking, but again, too vivid, too detailed for a church wanting simplicity. Then there's the astronomical book, where Enoch learns the secrets of the stars from the angel Uriel. It's not just poetry, it's a precise calendar based on a 364-day solar year, divided into 12 months of 30 days plus 4 extra. The sun, moon, and stars are guided by angels ensuring cosmic harmony. Why ban this? It contradicts the lunar calendar used in Judaism and early Christianity, which led to debates over holy days. Ethiopia adopted this solar calendar, still using it today. Their new year is in September, and they celebrate Christmas on January 7th. This ties into their identity as keepers of ancient truths, resisting Roman and Byzantine influences. Enoch's dream visions retell biblical history through animal allegories, sheep for Israel, wolves for enemies, culminating in a new heaven and earth. And the Epistle of Enoch warns the righteous to endure, promising reward. Overall, Enoch expands the Bible's worldview. Sin isn't just human, it's cosmic, involving rebellious celestials. For modern readers, it resonates with UFO theories or ancient astronaut ideas. Some even link the Watchers to aliens, but that's speculation. More seriously, it deepens themes in Revelation, like the war in heaven. Now let's shift to the Book of Jubilees, often called Little Genesis, written around 160–150 BC. During the Maccabean period, it's presented as a revelation to Moses on Mount Sinai. An angel dictates the history from creation to Exodus, but with twists. Time is structured in Jubilees, 49-year cycles, totaling 50 Jubilees from Adam to the conquest of Canaan. This emphasizes a divine timeline where events happen on schedule. Angels play huge roles. They teach Adam to till the earth, instruct Noah on medicine post-flood, and reveal laws to Abraham. The Sabbath is eternal, observed even in heaven. Dietary laws, circumcision, all predate Sinai, making them universal. Jubilees attacks Hellenization, urging strict adherence to Jewish customs amid Greek influence. Why excluded? As Christianity distanced from Judaism, emphasizing grace over law, think Paul's letters, Jubilees legalism felt outdated. It also promotes a solar calendar, clashing with the lunar one. But Ethiopia, with its Jewish roots via Solomon, embraced it. Their practices include Old Testament rituals like kosher-like diets and Sabbath observance, blending Judaism and Christianity in a way the West rejected. Scholars love Jubilees for filling Genesis gaps. Why did Cain kill Abel? Jealousy over sisters. How did evil spirits originate? From Nephilim souls. It influences the Ethiopian calendar and festivals, like their emphasis on angelic guidance. Next, the books of Maccabees, not just 1 and 2, but 3 in Ethiopia. These are historical thrillers from the 2nd century BC. Worst Maccabees chronicles the revolt against Antiochus IV, who desecrated the temple with a Zeus statue. Mattathias and sons, especially Judas Maccabeus, lead a guerrilla war, rededicating the temple, basis for Hanukkah. It's gritty, battles, alliances with Rome, heroism. 2 Maccabees is more theological, with miracles like heavenly horsemen aiding Judas. The famous martyrdom of 7 brothers and their mother, tortured for refusing pork, proclaims resurrection hope. It hints at praying for the dead, supporting Catholic purgatory doctrine, which is why Protestants dropped it. 3 Maccabees, unique to Ethiopia and some Orthodox canons, shifts to Egypt under Ptolemy IV. He tries exterminating Jews with elephants, but God intervenes, turning the beasts against the persecutors. It's about divine protection and faithfulness. These books celebrate resistance, fitting Ethiopia's history of defying invaders. They inspired their own warriors, like against Italians. Then the Ascension of Isaiah, a 1st-2nd century text. Isaiah ascends through 7 heavens, seeing angelic ranks, seraphim praising God, lower angels managing stars. Satan, called Samael, rules the firmament. The climax, a vision of the beloved, Christ, descending, incarnating, crucifying, resurrecting, and ascending. It predicts church corruption too. Banned for its detailed cosmology, risking heresy. But Ethiopia values its prophetic Christology, Baruch and the letter of Jeremiah. Baruch, secretary to Jeremiah, laments Jerusalem's fall, confesses sins, promises restoration. The letter mocks idols, urging exiles to stay faithful. These reinforce repentance and monotheism, preserved in Ethiopia as wisdom literature. Other extras. The prayer of Manasseh, a repentance psalm, Sirach and wisdom of Solomon for ethics, Tobit and Judith for adventure and virtue. Culturally, these books shape Ethiopian life. Enoch in exorcisms, Jubilees in timekeeping, Maccabees in patriotism. Politically, they fueled independence. Emperors invoked Maccabean heroism. Economically, church manuscripts boosted scribal traditions. Technologically, Ge'ez preservation aided linguistics. Globally, they influenced theology. Enoch on angels, Jubilees on calendars. Legacy, rediscovery via scrolls, challenges Western canon. In modern times, they spark debates on biblical inspiration. But what about controversies? Some say Ethiopia's canon includes forgeries. Others praise its completeness. Side tangent, compared to Nag Hammadi Gnostic texts, excluded for heresy, but Enoch isn't Gnostic, it's apocalyptic Judaism. Biographies, King Ezana, converter, Frumentius, first bishop, Lalibela, church builder. Historiography, Western scholars like James Bruce in 1770 brought Enoch manuscripts to Europe, sparking interest. Modern interpretations. Some see Nephilim in ancient myths worldwide, like Greek titans. This richness shows why Ethiopia guarded them against Roman uniformity, Islamic threats, colonial erasure. As we wrap this part, reflect. These books aren't relics. They're alive, challenging us to broader faith. As we reach the final stretch of our journey through the hidden depths of the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, I want you to pause and reflect on everything we've uncovered so far. We've traced Ethiopia's ancient ties to biblical legends, explored how their unique history allowed them to preserve a fuller canon of scriptures, and delved into the explosive contents of those banned books, tales of fallen angels, cosmic calendars, heroic rebellions, and prophetic visions that paint a vivid picture of the spiritual warfare shaping our world. But now, it's time to confront the big questions head-on. Why exactly were these books deemed so dangerous that they were systematically excluded from the Western Bible? What forces, theological, political, cultural, conspired to bury them? And perhaps most intriguingly, what do they mean for us today, in a world grappling with uncertainty, division, and a search for deeper truths? We'll unpack the reasons for their suppression with exhaustive detail, examining the historical contexts, key figures, controversies, and even side stories that illuminate this shadowy chapter of Christian history. Then, we'll turn to the colonial era's dark role, the global legacy, and a thought-provoking wrap-up that might just change how you view faith and history. Let's start by dissecting the reasons for the bans, layer by layer, because this wasn't a simple decision made in a vacuum. It was a centuries-long process involving debates, power struggles, and fears of upheaval. One primary reason was the mystical and speculative content that these books overflow with, content that early church leaders worried could lead believers astray or dilute the core message of Christianity. Take the Book of Enoch again, for instance. Its detailed accounts of the Watchers' rebellion, the Nephilim's rampage, and Enoch's heavenly tours weren't just stories. They were explorations of the unseen realms that bordered on the esoteric. In the 2nd century, thinkers like Justin Martyr referenced Enoch approvingly, seeing it as explaining Genesis's giants, but by the 4th century, at councils like Laodicea around 364 AD, there was a push to standardize scriptures. Jerome, the translator of the Vulgate Bible, dismissed Enoch as apocryphal, arguing its angel lore smacked of Jewish fables unfit for Christian doctrine. Augustine, in his City of God, acknowledged its antiquity but cautioned against its fabulous elements, fearing they could foster superstition or distract from Christ's redemptive work. Why the fear? The early church was fighting on multiple fronts, against pagan religions with their own angel and demon myths like Roman gods or Greek titans, and against internal heresies like Gnosticism, which thrived on secret knowledge. Gnostics, such as the Valentinians, twisted angelic hierarchies to claim elite spiritual insights, and church fathers like Irenaeus in the 2nd century wrote against heresies to combat that. Including Enoch, might have opened the door to similar misinterpretations, where believers fixated on cosmic battles rather than personal salvation. In Ethiopia, though, this mysticism was embraced as complementary. Their monks, like those in the Debridamo monastery founded in the 6th century, used Enoch in contemplative practices, seeing it as enhancing devotion rather than threatening it. Another angle. The book's close ties to Jewish traditions made them uncomfortable as Christianity sought to forge its own identity. The Book of Jubilees is a prime example, with its insistence on eternal laws like the Sabbath and circumcision, presented as revealed to patriarchs long before Moses. Written during the Hellenistic crisis around 161–140 BC, amid Antiochus's attempts to Hellenize Jews, Jubilees was a rallying cry for purity. It even critiques the lunar calendar used by temple priests, advocating a solar one to avoid forgetting the feasts. Early Christians, influenced by Paul, who in Galatians argued that the law was a tutor leading to Christ now fulfilled, saw such texts as regressive. At the Council of Jerusalem in Acts 15, around 50 AD, leaders like Peter and James decided Gentiles didn't need full Jewish law observance. Including Jubilees could have reignited debates, perhaps fueling Judaizing heresies where some insisted on circumcision for salvation. Key figures like Marcion in the 2nd century went extreme, rejecting the entire Old Testament as too Jewish, proposing a canon without it. While the Church rejected Marcionism, the sentiment lingered, leading to a narrower canon. Ethiopia, however, never fully severed those Jewish roots. Their practices include male circumcision on the 8th day, avoidance of pork, and Sabbath observance alongside Sunday worship, a syncretism tracing back to their Solomonic legends. Historians like Edward Ullendorf in his 1952 book Ethiopia and the Bible argue this Judaic Christianity made Ethiopia a living bridge between Old and New Testaments, preserving what the West pruned. A third reason, these books posed a threat to emerging orthodoxy and church unity. The early church was a patchwork of communities, Alexandrian, Antiochian, Roman, each with varying texts. The Ascension of Isaiah, with its 7-heaven cosmology and detailed Christ prophecy, could spark divergent theologies. For example, it describes the Messiah disguising himself to descend undetected by Satan, echoing Docetism, the heresy that Christ only seemed human. At the Council of Ephesus in 431 AD, which condemned Nestorianism, leaders were vigilant against anything fracturing Christ's nature. Eusebius, the 4th century historian, listed some Apocrypha as disputed, and by Trent in 1546, Catholics finalized their canon excluding these, while Protestants went further. Controversies abounded. The Shepherd of Hermas, included in some Ethiopian lists, was popular in the 2nd century, but dropped for its allegorical visions of the church as a tower, seen as too vague. Side tangent, the Muratorian fragment, an early canon list from around 170 AD, includes some Apocrypha but warns against others. Modern historiography, like in Bart Ehrman's Lost Scriptures, shows how politics played in. Emperors like Constantine funded Bible copies post-Nicaea, favoring uniformity to stabilize the empire after Diocletian's persecutions. Ethiopia's isolation spared them this. Connected to Coptic Egypt but geographically remote, they avoided Byzantine impositions after the 451 Chalcedon split. Their Abuna, patriarch, was appointed from Alexandria until 1959, maintaining independence. Now let's turn to the colonial era, where suppression took a sinister turn. From the 15th century, European contact began with Portuguese explorers like Pero da Covilhã in 1490, sent by King John II to ally against Muslims. They marveled at Ethiopia's Christianity, but critiqued its errors, like the broad canon. Jesuits arrived in the 16th century, converting Emperor Susenyos in 1622, who banned traditional practices and tried imposing the Roman canon. This sparked rebellion. Susenyos abdicated, and his son Fasilides expelled Jesuits in 1632, fortifying Gondar against Frankish influence. Fast forward to the scramble for Africa. Britain, France, Italy eyed Ethiopia. In 1868, Britain's Napier expedition against Emperor Tewodros II looted manuscripts, including Gayes Bibles, now in museums like the British Library. Controversial repatriation debates today. Italy's 1896 invasion failed at Adwa, a Pan-African symbol, but Mussolini's 1935 conquest was brutal. He aimed to civilize Ethiopia, suppressing the Orthodox Church as primitive. Italian forces burned churches, killed clergy, and promoted Catholicism, viewing the Ethiopian Bible's extras as superstitious. Patriarch Abuna Kerelos IV resisted, excommunicating collaborators. Post-W2, Ethiopia regained independence, but scars remained. Culturally, this marginalized Ethiopia's traditions globally. Western scholars like August Dillman in the 19th century translated Enoch from Ethiopian manuscripts, yet dismissed them as secondary. Economically, church lands were targeted, disrupting agriculture. Technologically, printing presses introduced by missionaries altered manuscript traditions. Global impact. Ethiopia's resistance inspired anti-colonial movements. Haile Selassie addressed the League of Nations in 1936, foreshadowing Dwaytu. Legacy. Today, UNESCO recognizes Lalibela churches. Scholars like Getachew Haile catalogue Gayes texts at Hill Museum and Manuscript Library. Modern implications. These books resonate amid crises. Enoch's end times visions mirror climate disasters, wars, think Ukraine or Middle East, as signs. Jubilees laws prompt questions. Should Christians revisit Sabbath in a burnout culture? Maccabees inspire resistance, like in civil rights. Controversies. Some evangelicals decry them as non-inspired. Others, like in the Ethiopian diaspora, integrate them. Side stories. Beta Israel's 1980s airlifts to Israel highlight Jewish ties. Biographies. Menelik II, Adwa Victor, used biblical claims diplomatically. In conclusion, the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible isn't a relic. It's a testament to resilience, holding truths that challenge us to expand our faith. What if these banned books were preserved for such a time as this? As you ponder, remember, history's hidden chapters often hold the keys to understanding our present and future. Thank you for joining this epic exploration. May it ignite your own quest for deeper revelations.